Hi, Happy New Year. I haven't done one of these for this year so far, and I didn't do like the New Year or Christmas message that I have done for a few years because, well, they're exactly the same. Nothing's changed. So you might as well just watch one of those because there's nothing I can add. Well, I expect actually, if you listen to most of these Pursuits of Truth, there's nothing more to add because it's all it's all the same. Status quo, and that's it. And suffering, and we all know that the system and the way we live is rubbish and we just carry on with it, and people just like and me moan about it, and that's it, nothing gets changed. So yeah, I did start making some videos, but I haven't got around to finishing them, so I thought I would just do this one thing where I talk about things. Um, Obviously you can see the clips on Sky News or whichever media outlet you get them from, to see for yourself, because it's always best not to take my word for it, but to go see for yourself, make your own judgment up, and then you can put your comments on what your views are. So the first one that I did start was about I'm sure there was a few others, but I've probably forgotten them now. Was the Bondi Beach attack in Australia, the terrorist attack on, and I think it was an event, a Jewish event that was taking place there, and just another example of the stupidity of human beings. Of, well, I don't know. I don't think they've. It was a father and son um, who did it. The problem is I know one of them's dead, one was in hospital. But the thing is, with all of these kinds of things, we never get, like in the films, you get the bit where in the court, then they will explain why I did it. We never get that in reality. So we never, I mean, obviously, I assume it's because of, although there's no direct correlation between doing these things, but I assume to do with possibly, well, I know they said they were influenced by ISIS, and I suspect Gaza has helped fuel ISIS and things like that, because it's easy for them to say, look what's happening, and, are you going to fight for your brothers and this kind of rubbish. Um, the fact is, you condone, killing of innocent people, and then you go and do it yourself, and you think that that's going to somehow. I don't get the logic of terrorism. I really don't. I know before someone, I think it was Michael Clark from Sky News, said it's done as a disruption to change narratives and this, that, and the other. But I still don't get that really. It doesn't, it doesn't seem to help anything. And these poor innocent people, and the fear that the Jewish community are living with because of the actions by a few members of the Israeli government, um, and what they're doing in Gaza, which I assume in the fullness of time will come out as breaking international law and etc. We're in that lull at the moment. Well, it's not really on the news very much, but I'm sure, same like with Nelson Mandela and other things, where people, one day everyone will agree that, yeah, that was really bad, and how did that happen? And yet we're living through it, and we're not living through it, we're witnessing it, but there's people who are actually living through it. But just to go back to the Bondi Beach thing, the other thing that struck me was seeing there was a Muslim man, who got the gun off one of the, I don't know if it was the son or father, the terrorists, put it against a tree, and then um, the guy ran away, and that to me made me think that when these events happen, the police, and it hasn't happened. I don't know why I'm the only one talking about it. I haven't heard anyone else talk about this. So the police need to say what you're allowed to do in this situation. Because if that man, because I was thinking, why didn't he shoot him in the leg? Because the fact is, he went back and they had other guns, and then he carried on shooting people. If that man had shot him in the leg, he wouldn't have been able to shoot anyone else. But the problem is, I guess, from hindsight, we know that it's a terrorist event. At that time when they were doing it, they didn't know what was going on. They knew that people were shooting, but I suppose they don't know who they are. They could be undercover cops. They could be, they don't know their terror. Well, I suppose he knew there was something wrong because he took the gun from him. But the thing is, like, you could shoot someone in the leg. You think, oh, that's perfectly safe. But say you shot them in the thigh, and that artery that, it bleeds to death, and it bleeds in like 5 minutes, and then you're dead. And then you're up with manslaughter or something like that. That's why I think the police need to sort of issue what you should do. I mean, maybe you could have broken the gun or hidden the gun somewhere else. And there was another couple, And this one was even worse because that guy, I think he did get shot, but he survived. But there was a couple at the very beginning, I believe, that I saw the footage of this of them. They got the gun off the person. I think they were hitting the person with the gun, um, and then he struggled with them, got the gun back, and shot them both dead. And just that, like, you got a gun and using it as a hammer, whereas you should have shot him. But I guess the thing is like, I don't know if I was in that situation, would I be able to do that? The thing is, is the terrorists that want to go around shooting people. Peaceful people don't really want to do it, and it takes a lot, I suppose, to pull a trigger on someone, especially when you don't know what's really going on. I guess, other than this person's got a gun, you don't know that they're gonna come back and shoot you, or they've shot loads of people on the beach. I don't know what was known at that time, but I believe that was near the beginning. But if that person had shot that person in the leg, and then they weren't able to continue, then maybe it would have saved lots of lives. That's why I think it's really important that the police and politicians come out with a very clear statement of what to do in this situation. If you do believe it is a terrorist situation, I don't know, maybe there is nothing to be done about this, but it just seemed such a shame that they were, they risked their lives for other people they didn't even know, and yet they lost their lives doing that. But I suppose it shows the humanity of some people versus on that day two individuals who wanted to cause harm and cause terror and kill people, as opposed to those people that stood up for people they didn't even know. And also it shows that we need to get the media when they talk about Islamophobia, not Islamophobia, Islamists, and they like to put that title and try and besmirch the whole religion over two people's actions. At least there was one Muslim guy who stopped one of the others. I mean, so-called Muslim, I would say, because they're not following Islamic tradition, and that they're not meant to be doing those things. It's quite clear in the Holy Quran if you read it and understand it. But it's just to see another example of the world we're living in and how human beings are just doing this to each other. For what? Because they watched some propaganda videos and they were easily swayed to go and do these stupid things that all they done is spill people's blood. And I don't understand, if you believe in God and you believe in your judgment and this kind of stuff, which most of the monotheistic religions do, how are you going to explain the blood that you shed? For what purpose? Even if you say your excuse is that, oh wow, because the Israeli government, or a few of them, are breaking international law or causing starvation or whatever in another country. That's violence with violence isn't. I mean, I don't see any God that's going to accept that as a oh well done. So I don't understand the mindset really of these individuals that do these heinous acts. So that was the one thing that I started doing a video on, because to see that, and also like when because when they're talking, the Israelis are talking about how they told the Australian government and they weren't really listened to, and the fear of these things happening, and the fact like that there was a recent one in the UK, wasn't there, and learning about in Israel schools where Israelis go to, or synagogues, that they have security 24/7 or outside or whatever, which seems like, and this is in the UK, in it seems unheard of that places of worship need security. It just shows that as human beings, this is how I always look at it, take away the tags and things, because that gets in the way of some people's views and your identity, which has been brought onto you by people hundreds and thousands of years ago. As human beings, look what we're doing to each other. This isn't what life is meant to be about. And then the next was Donald Trump. Well, two of them are related to him, really. One was the taking of the Venezuelan president, who may or may not be a bad person. I assume he is a bad person, and this, that, and the other. But just the idea of, I mean, people used to say as kids, would say oh, why doesn't, when you see a film or a real event, like why doesn't the president or the American just go in and pick that person up or do this, that, and the other? And here in reality, it was done. Shows that it actually can be done. But um, the fact is, my worry is the message it's sending to the rest of the world. I mean, if you've got countries that you're worried about and then maybe not following international law or don't even sign up to it, then and you're meant to be the bastion of this kind of, the like America is, the leader of the free world and all this kind of stuff that's talked of, and the exemplar, and you see this kind of thing happening, things that you'd expect non-democratic countries to be doing, and yet democratic countries are doing this. And the question of international law, I guess they'd argue that it's not, but there's a lot that are arguing, in the legal profession that it is against international law. And there does seem to be this, because of, the Iran issue and what Israel's doing, there seems to be this eroding of international law. And like back in my day when it was the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, they had all these UN resolutions that took months and then they gave up with it. But at least they tried to pretend to go through that process. Now they don't even bother. They just go into anyone's country and, sovereign land and do whatever they want. And because they'll always do it, like you could say that, oh, okay, he's doing it because of drugs. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of other things that he could be doing about drugs in his own country that he could control without breaking international law, going to someone else's country and picking, I mean, you could say, like, what's this got to do with him? Because apparently most of the drugs go to Europe, not to America. But anyway, but the thing is that the message it's sending to the rest of the world and to those other non-democratic countries who, now they'll be thinking, well, if he can do it, he can't tell us, well, he will be a hypocrite and say you can't do it, but I can. And to think that, he's doing this there, but when it came to Ukraine, yeah, when it came to Ukraine and, he keeps talking about all the needless deaths and all that kind of stuff. Why isn't he, flying into Moscow and, kidnapping Vladimir Putin and putting him on, who has an official, I believe, from the ICC, ICJ arrest warrant for crimes against humanity, etc. Or even, I believe, Benjamin Netanyahu, his friend that keeps turning up in America, but they don't sign up to that agreement, do they? That's why they don't do anything. But they wouldn't do anything anyway. But why is it that he's not done that? Well, obviously because he knows that he couldn't do that to Russia or China or someone big like that, because the consequences. And that's where it makes me think of, like, in school, the bullies, how bullies will pick on, they won't pick on people, like that famous maxim, like go and pick on someone your own size. They won't pick on someone that's bigger than them or someone that's equal size than them, because they don't know if they'll win or not. So they pick on the one that they know they can win on. And that kind of mentality, it makes me think of that when it comes to this, that, like Iran or like, Syria, or, these countries that don't have the weapons, that don't have the backing of the international community to be able to. I mean, the big test will be if he's talking about now taking Greenland off of Denmark. Or Greenland off of the people of Denmark, the people of Greenland, and of course that's protected under NATO, and it's, I guess it's part of Europe in that way. Will he do that? Because that would be, I suppose, a test. I don't think he will, because he'll have the whole of Europe. But I think the whole of Europe, like we've seen with Keir Starmer, I mean, these politicians appear to me so weak in the sense that they won't stand up. There's some of them that do. That stand up and say, when something's wrong, not try and, I mean, Keir Starmer, my understanding is he must know international law. He was, a lot of his cases were against human rights abuses and etc. So he must know international law. And I mean, there may be grey areas in this, that, and the other, but he was refusing to really answer that question because he wants to keep on the side of the money spinner, Donald Trump, and of the power of America. He doesn't want to be treated like, Zelensky did in Ukraine when that terrible meeting it was in the White House or the Oval Office, wherever it was, that or other politicians that that he like how he treats the Democrats and etc. But yeah, it's just a worrying situation that he's sending around the world. That now it's like everything's torn up, and now everyone can do whatever they want. Going in, what's to stop now? That's my worry. Is that he's sending this precedent, which is very dangerous. I personally feel. And then the other thing is that I saw today, which is why I was prompted to do this one, is the lady that was shot by an ICE officer. I mean, I've only seen a few angles, but it looks like at the end of you can see it if they can on your media outlets, but it's in the middle of the road in Minnesota. This woman, I believe, she's protesting. She's in her car. She's blocking the road from these ICE agents who want to go and, I assume, find some immigrants to get rid of. And they're in the car, and it looked like they were shouting to her to move out of the way, which doesn't seem to be conducive to the trying to de-escalate the situation. Need some people skills there, but they then come out and they're still shouting, and I'm sure she's shouting as well. And then one of them tries to open the door, and she moves the car, and they try to open the door, and then another man who's not balaclavaed stands in front of the car. Not sure why he wasn't balaclavaed actually. He stands in front of the very edge of the car, near the left wheel, and it looks like his gun is already out before she pulls off towards him, and he, rather than just move out the way, he shoots her 3 times, and I believe she's dead, because we see them try to do resuscitation, but I'm assuming she's dead. And Donald Trump's put on this X, and I think there was someone else that he was run over, and it was vicious, and this, that, and the other, and unruly, and all that kind of stuff. She was protesting, which is a legal right, I believe, still in America, in the Western world. And he wasn't run over, because when you play the footage, even though they don't show you the moment after you hear a bullet, but you don't see because they don't want you to see, I don't know why, because you can't see any blood or anything, but they don't want to show that moment when the crime was committed. And after you see the car, and you can see a man without a balaclava, which I assume is him, he's walking around, and you see him holster his gun. He wasn't run over. He wasn't on the floor. He wasn't run over. To be run over, you have to be underneath the car, I would assume, with syntax and grammar. But he was able to get himself out of danger. And so there was no need for him to open his weapon on an American citizen, who wasn't a terrorist, wasn't a criminal. This was a person who was protesting, and I'm sure he was annoying. Because that's part of protesting. But I mean, if it was a normal person in another country, you would have expected them to come up to without a gun and said, please can you move your car, or we're going to arrest you, or this, that, and the other, and that would have gone forward, and then eventually I assume that person would have moved. But the fact of, pulling out a weapon in front of a person and shouting so much, may disorientate you and make you do things, because you think, especially in America, someone pull out a gun, you think, well, I've got to flee because this person's just going to shoot me because he's just pulled a gun out on me, an American citizen who's just protesting, not a criminal, not a terrorist. So, and they're trying to spin it like she used the car as a weapon, which, admittedly, in America, that you can't really drive because they will shoot you without question and then try and reframe it. And it seems like they haven't heard anything since the George Floyd incident and many others. It doesn't seem like, I don't know, like they're not learning this lesson. And it seems like, are they actually vetting the people that they're giving guns to and explaining to them that, you only use guns in extremities. You only use, like, if it was a terrorist who had a weapon, then that would be defense, and that would be necessary to, unfortunately, you'd have to kill that person because they're going to try and kill you or others. Yeah, I get that. But this is a person who didn't have a weapon, who was just in a car, and you know this person is protesting, and you should be able to handle that situation without needing for someone to die. And that person purposely stood in front of that vehicle, knowing that the person had already, when they tried to open, before that, that one of them had tried to forcibly open the door, which I assume, I mean, I don't know whether police or even ICE agents are allowed to just enter a vehicle without any reason other than that you're refusing to move off the road, which I assume isn't a criminal offence. And protesting isn't a criminal offence, is it? But leaving your car in the middle of the road and refusing to move isn't a criminal offence. Isn't. I mean, I don't think you might be able to bring the police out. I don't know, but it just. I mean, and then for him to stand in front gave him that opportunity to be able to shoot that person and frame it as, well, that person was using a weapon. If I didn't shoot them, they would have run me over. Even though President Trump says that person was run over. I mean, maybe hitting someone. I mean, the person, yeah, I assume he moved out of the way, like you would do if a car's zooming. You see it in films all the time, and people when they have arguments and they do it, and they drive off fast, and you just move out of the way. The person was still walking and still was able to holster his gun. So I don't know. It shows me that they're not really sort of, it makes me feel that the people that they're giving guns to aren't really being trained adequately enough, or they're not the right type of people to have guns, because shooting your own citizens who are just protesting, yeah, I guess it's annoying, because you don't want to, they're doing their job and this, that, and the other, but that's not, I mean, nowhere else would this be happening. I mean, if it did happen in, say, Russia or China, they'd be all saying, look how bad, the human rights, look how bad they're treating their individuals and this, that, and the other. But this is happening in America. And it's not the first time. But it's just, and I feel like with all these different things, with Gaza and Venezuela and all this stuff, it's all, and with the way Donald Trump handles things and etc. and his bullish tactics, we're getting into very dangerous, I think, waters of, like, in the next few years, especially like with the rise of all this sort of anti stuff when it comes to, like sort of neo-Nazi kind of stuff, or this kind of, waving flags and sort of, our country and this, that, and the other. And like I would say, like, everyone's forgotten the intrinsic truth, the only intrinsic truth, that we're all human beings. And all these other things are labels that thousands of years ago, other men who just want to possess things, whether it's, people, land, or money, or this, that, and the other, came up with to keep us all in our place and keep us, so we would fight our castle and this, that, and the other. But we're believing the lie, as it were. But it's just, we're forgetting the fact that we're all human beings. We only get this one existence, and this is what we're doing to each other. And it's like, example after example. I'm going to live my whole life, and when I will pass, and it'll be exactly the same. And then my children will have the exact same problem. It's like human beings just don't want to evolve or grow up or change. Anyway, that's what I want to say. Take care, take it easy, God bless, and peace.